To the 9 o'clock conversation. Jesse here alongside Juliana. Now, the guest we have in this hour is a man I've known for a long time. Dr. Edwin Musiime is a Ugandan entrepreneur, media personality. He's a pastor, he's an author, best known for his work in leadership development and transformational thinking. He is the chairman of River Group Africa. You could quickly go and Google that. River Group Africa. He's a speaker at global leadership summits. He's the author of a new book, Next Level Thinking, a book that challenges individuals and nations to unlock their fullest potential through mindset shift, innovation, and purpose-driven action. Dr. Musiime has worked across East Africa advocating for value-based leadership and is an ardent admirer of Rwanda's model of progress, which he describes as evidenced in that disciplined imagination that can lead to national transformation. Dr. Edwin Musiime, welcome to Kigali in the morning.
It is exciting to be right here, and it's such a blessing to get to meet you after so many years. You were such a great inspiration to me in radio, and getting to meet you after 4 decades.
Who is inspiring the other? Who inspired the other, though? Because Jesse says he's been an inspiration to me in radio. You equally saying the same thing. It's good to have you here, Doctor.
It's humbling to be here, and I'm so excited to be here. My first time at this amazing infrastructure, and it's beautiful to be here.
I mean, beautiful to have you here. When they told me you were in town yesterday, I was like, Edwin, he is in town? You know, I've been following the work that you do. I followed you to the part where you were starting to build your house in a neighborhood I knew. Yeah. And actually, one time I took holiday and I said, let me go around this neighborhood for Airbnb.
To just look at
Wow. Wow. Well, I hope you're not going to be the people that I met, I said earlier. I meet an old man with all this gray hair and says, oh, I've grown up watching you on TV. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, how does a 70-year-old
grew up watching you?
I mean, you've been there too long.
Yeah.
The property show, I don't know if you still do it.
Yeah,
I think it was when before the
the
property show. He had another show on one of the national TVs.
Yeah, it was UBC. That was 20 plus.
I think for me, that's where I started.
I've done about 25 years of broadcasting. That makes me really so old. Yeah, it all started with UTV. Then we rebranded to UBC.
Yeah.
Then, of course, I had my first scene in Uganda. I was the first guy to start a Christian show, Christian Voice. I was the first guy to do a morning show in Uganda. That's Good Morning Uganda. And
on
then,
TV.
On TV.
Yes.
Then I joined Vision Group to help them rebrand their morning show as well. And that was when I had said I'd signed off a deal with myself and God that by age 30, I don't want to be employed. So at 30, I had to exit. It was a very painful transition, which today, I think the two most important decisions, one was accepting the Lord in my life. And the second one was, please, disclaimer, don't quote me wrongly, but the second decision was choosing to resign from employment. And I had the earlier conversation about
it's a hard decision.
Yeah, I think for me that was one of the best decisions I ever made.
To get out of employment.
Yeah, and then of course that's when we started the property show, which of course many people used to think I'm employed by NTV, but they didn't know we owned the franchise because we do property show Ghana, then we did Rwanda for a long time, property show Rwanda, and then property show Uganda. So the show is still on. It's just that I've handed it over to a younger team. I feel like I'm aging. So I only have a segment on it where I do an evaluation of what the real estate industry is like in terms of insight. But also we are working on having River TV Africa. So we are launching our own TV channel. So
wow.
Yeah, it's a lot
of interesting stuff.
Thank you.
So you stopped the property show Rwanda.
Yeah. We put it on hold, and we're still in discussions on whether we can actually have it back. My business development team is still trying to make some evaluations, and we're looking to the possibility of having it back here, really.
Interesting, because the space for real estate has really evolved in Rwanda. It's looking really good.
Actually, I would say under River Group, we run an interior designing firm. And I could say arguably that Rwanda, in many aspects, in terms of interior designing, has actually gone ahead and far ahead of Uganda. I look at some of the properties here and that my listings person from here sends me, and Rwanda is incredibly doing well. Right from architectural designs to interior designs, it's phenomenal. So it's really exciting. That's why we're considering coming back in here as well.
Great. Doctor, you write a book, Next Level Thinking, but there's a quote from William Blake, which is on the cover page, where you say, what is now proved was once only imagined. How do we as Africans break free from inherited limitations to build visionary ventures? I mean, you left employment and you started out, and we've seen you. Like year on year, we've been seeing your progress.
Yeah.
To some point, I started to wonder, do you ever face any obstacles? Because you're just going all the way.
Well, thank you for that. I love to always respond to that, starting with one of the greatest leaders on earth today. I'm a great ardent follower of the ruler of Dubai, Sheikh Al Maktoum. And there's a billboard that I once saw while I was in Dubai about 5 years ago. And I had to tell the driver to rotate around 5 times so that I can just read those words and actually capture them fully in my mind. And these words are, Sheikh Maktoum says, the future belongs to those who can imagine it, design it, and execute it. And I told the guy, drive over again. And those words stuck in my mind. The future belongs to those who can imagine it, design it, and execute it. And pretty much when you look at the life of a leader, when you talk about innovative leadership, we just finished a leadership conference in Uganda where we're talking about innovative leadership, you realize that the greatest leaders among us are the leaders that can imagine tomorrow's problems and fix them today, the problems of the future and fix them today. So one of the biggest challenges that we have in Africa is that when you look at our classical conditioning from 2 major aspects. One, from the colonial times, where we were given an education system to which many of us have not changed, that taught us what to think and not how to think. Right? Then secondly, they shaped our minds in education to simply go and get out of school so that our forefathers could work on the tea farms and the cotton ginneries and pick coffee for them to take to their countries. Now that was the mindset in previous centuries. In the 21st century, it's such a shame that many African economies have not evolved from that. It's still the same education system. I like to use the example that in Uganda, I can't speak for Tanzania, Rwanda, and any other country, but in Uganda, when we were growing up in nursery school, I remember that in the morning about this time, we would be on play fields naked in underwear and jumping up and down singing all these lousy songs. 2 things happen here. In China and Hong Kong, same age group, kids are being taught how to code. Kids are being taught how to manufacture. Kids are being taught how to think innovatively while we're on PE naked. And what was the picture of that standing on PE in pajamas and all that? A replica of the mindset of slavery where we're being taken just in underwear. Remember that? It's such a shame that we can't see through that. And then number 2, we have the classical conditions of how we're brought up in our families. We never ever got to realize that actually our families greatly also shaped us. Now, shaped by the same minds who went through the same colonial system. And we grow up with a scarcity mindset. Because we grew up typically in households in Uganda where the mother would tell the father, sugar is done, and the man would get so angry and say, do you think money grows on trees? You just suck the sugar like, there's bikenembe, those insects and all that. So that's the life we grew up in. Now, when you're an African child growing up through such ranks and systems and environments and atmospheres, by the time you get 20, 30, you're still locked up in that scarcity mindset where there's insufficiency all around us. It's never enough. And back to your question, I strongly believe when I wrote Next Level Thinking, and William Blake is talking about the imagination, the power of imagination, I always state this statement that the results of your life are greatly dependent on the size of your thoughts. As a man thinketh, so is he. So he is. So our thinking, and that's why I advocate and say that Africa is only going to rise by having a sense of a mental infrastructure shift. Unfortunately, it has become so cliche to talk about the mindset. We always the mindset. Oh, again, he's going to tell us about that. But everything we can ever imagine or think about, everything happens with our minds. It's all right here. And I dare say that whatever success you can ever imagine, whatever, I keep telling people, it's strange that someone actually can have a dream to buy a Range Rover that probably costs, I don't know about Rwandan francs, or probably $250,000. But the mindset is still a $10,000 or $2,000 mindset. The dream is big, the mindset is small. The imagination is big, the mindset small. So there must be a balance in a human mind to be able to balance between our dreams, aspirations, thoughts, and many times, back to Sheikh Maktoum's words, we can't stop at the stage of imagining. We have so many imaginaries and dreamers, but then we must design this future. And for me, in designing, when you talk about me resigning, it will shock you why I decided to resign by 30. I always saw, may his soul rest in peace, the late Bale Francis, many people know him, remarkable icon. I always saw these 70-year-olds, and please, if you're listening in, there's nothing wrong with deciding to stay in employment for as long. And I think for me here, it's just about intentional growth and decisions. Someone could decide to say, I'm going to be a career person up to 80. There's nothing wrong with that. It's that choices vary. And so for me, watching 70-year-olds, while I was in my 20s, being summoned by a CEO and running over and running around, I always ask myself, is that what I want to be? When I'm 50 or 60, I said, no, that's not what I want to be. And I see some of these old guys don't even have a bicycle to their name or motorcycle to their name. I'm thinking, is that how I want to be? And I think for me, the greatest lessons in life that I've learned have been by observation. And it's very important for anybody listening or watching to always be able to be cognizant of what we observe in life. Oftentimes, we learn two ways, either by revelation, that's the wisdom and knowledge through reading, etc., then by experience. Experiences come through the things that we observe in life. If I see Jesse, there are certain things I'm going to like about him, I'll adapt those or adopt them. There are certain things I may not like about him. I need to discard those, but also look into my own internal ecosystem and say, okay, wait a minute, have I seen traces of that? If I saw Jesse in a nightclub at midnight and tomorrow we had an appointment, he tells me, oh, I can't make it because I was in the nightclub, I'm going to observe that and say, wait a minute, that's not right. I don't want that in my socio-economic ecosystem. So I think for me, bottom line is that I always say this. In life, if you do not know what you want, at least you must know what you do not want. That
Which
will
clearly
lead
gives you what you want.
Exactly. Exactly.
Listen, you have praised Rwanda. I fell on a voice note
Yeah.
where you were praising Rwanda
Yeah.
for its disciplinary and intentionality in growth.
Yeah.
And you have observed Rwanda. You've been here, you've come back, and you're returning in August. What can other African nations learn from Rwanda's next level approach to development?
Firstly, I can say I have personally never met President Paul Kagame, but he's one of the African or global leaders that I admire to one day meet, and I know soon I will meet him. But I would say that he's one person, and one of the reasons I want to meet him is I would have to have that opportunity to just ask the first question being, what is on your mind all the time? Because frankly speaking, like the late Dr. Miles Monroe said, rightly speaking, all things in our society, institutions, families, everything rises and falls on leadership. There's no excuse to it. There was an argument I was having with some ministers in Uganda, and they were saying, yeah, but you see, Rwanda is easily manageable because it is small. I said, nonsense. Listen, it has nothing to do with the size of an economy or country's boundaries. I mean, when you walk into Rwanda, and I happen to be the Director General for Green Economy East Africa, and one of the things we are advocating for is sustainability and climate change. I walk in there and you're not, even to the basic of you can't carry a kavera into the country. I always say this, what I learned from Sheikh Maktoum and what I'm getting to learn more and more over the last 5 years from President Paul Kagame is that leadership for me, before we discuss all the other structures and principles, must start with the leader's heart, love for country, love for her people. Because there are clearly certain things you can get into a country and you can tell how much a leader loves their country by the results and the shape of that country. And I strongly believe that that's what has shaped what Rwanda is today. I like to equate or relate Rwanda always with Dubai because of the two leaders and what I learned from them in terms of love for their people and their country. And I strongly believe that one of the things I praise about Rwanda has been that great, heavy, innovative leadership. And most importantly, the level of excellency. I find no room for mediocrity in Rwanda. And I love that. Right from the airport, you can tell that there have been systems that have been put in place that are supposed to subject the country to quality controls. You don't just waltz in here and design and set up an airport. No, you can see that everything in Uganda, if you're listening and you're ready, is just. In Rwanda, things are not just done just.
No.
When you look at the road networks, they're well planned, the pedestrian routes, the hotels. I've been to Radisson Blue. I'm a long-term fan of the Serena, but there's quite a number of hotels that have come up.
Yeah.
Even the real estate alone. I run a real estate construction company in Uganda, and I'm the chairman of Homes Expo. We have these annual expos all year long, and I see the progress we're making versus Rwanda. And you look at the curation. There was one time I had a meeting with your former Minister of Housing, I think Honorable Musoni, and we were talking about Vision 2025 then. And of course, Uganda has Vision 2040. And please, if you're listening, I'm not trying to compare Rwanda and Uganda. No, I'm not making comparisons. But I'm simply saying, when I met with him, he's sharing with me Vision 2025. And he was telling me how much you've gone ahead to actually finish the blueprint of what was laid. And now you're looking at 2030 and all that kind of thing. So, and I commend when you look at the leaders across the board, because I repeat, everything in every institution, in every country and economy always will fall and rise in leadership. And for me, Rwanda has been that benchmark of an African economy that is rising so fast, majorly because of, one, the innovative leadership, but also very importantly, the systems that have been set in place, and finally, more importantly, the mindset of the people have been wired to be able to understand what it means. It's called Omuganda. And I keep imagining, if you told any other African country, Nigeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Tanzania, or every last week,
Last Saturday of the month.
Let me not go too far. If you told Ugandans every last Saturday of the month, it's a cleaning day. Are you joking? Are you joking? But the fact that Rwandans are so patriotic, loving their country, to be able to know. I think I was once here when that was happening, and I was heading to the airport, and I was like, wow, I wish we could have this in every other African country. So for me, there's so many fasts. Sheikh Maktoum has set a tone for many fasts. President Paul in Rwanda is setting a tone for many fasts. I mean, I'm a soccer fan. Every time I'm watching PSG play and Arsenal play, visit Rwanda, and I'm thinking, what? There's no other African country imagining that. And I think for me, it's been heavily, I'll close by saying that in next level thinking, I say that every country must identify its greatest strength and its value offered to the world. And right now, when you look at the tourism arm of Rwanda, that has been one of the things that shapes what Rwanda is about. Tourism. Very important. Dubai doesn't have zebras, doesn't have elephants. They've benchmarked with tourism, and millions of dollars come into Dubai for that. Rwanda is following the same pattern. So I believe so strongly, and I've used the right word at the end. Everyone must understand, whether you're a leader, at household level, at institutional level, at country level, there must be a pattern or a template by which you're building a national institution. Why is it important? That then this gives precedence or proof of concept to be able to replicate that same success. God forbid today, if you didn't have a President Paul, you can see that Rwanda has set systems whereby any other leader coming in knows how to follow a certain template. Other African countries, things seem to happen by a Big Bang theory. Boom, boom, boom. And in case the leader is not there, you'd think, okay, what is going to happen next? So I feel like when you can easily walk into a company and tell that they have a blueprint or a template to follow. When you walk into Rwanda, you can tell clearly that there's a vision, not just a vision, but there are structures, and there's a template to follow. There's an order by which things are being done. There's an order by which you follow in order to do things. So I am excited about the future of Rwanda, and I feel bad that I have to make a decision between how much I do in Uganda and how much I do in Rwanda, but I'll choose patriotism and stick to Uganda and do a few things in Rwanda.
The world is obsessed with quick wins. What's the role of long-term thinking when it comes to transforming both an individual's life, that's a personal life, and transforming nations?
See, vision, let me give this example. You said she first saw me in UBC days. I first worked with UTV when I was earning 35,000, not dollars, not pounds, not Rwandan francs, because the francs are Rwanda francs are higher.
And at that time
Uganda.
it was 5 against the Ugandan shilling.
Yeah, so that was about $5 to $7.
Wow.
And I earned that for 4 years.
Wow.
What does that mean? I'll give you another example. I'll come back to my example. China. China will come into an African economy and say, okay, what do you need? Roads. How much are they going to cost? It's millions and millions and millions of dollars. The return on investment, you estimate and you actually realize it's going to be in the next, 50 or 60 years. They don't care. They're in for the long term. It's the long shot for them. So while I was earning 35, today's generation has changed. I employ close to 50 plus young people, but oftentimes when I meet young people and I'm coaching young people, the first question when they come to a station like this, have an opportunity to work,
How much do you pay?
how much do they pay? How much? And then you tell them
It's how
probably
much, literally.
$300. Now, in the mind of a young person today, the millennials or Gen Zs, whatever, in their mind, they're quickly thinking, okay, I'm renting at this, my fuel would be this, that can't cut it for me, man, I can't cut it. And that's very shallow thinking, and I'm not going to apologize for that. That's very shallow thinking. For 4 years, I worked for 35,000K, but what I was looking for was not that money. Actually, those time I used to joke with the late Bale Francis and say, guys, if I could, I would be the one that actually pays this station. I was so driven and passionate and excited, but I'll tell you something. Number one, I always talk about the 7 types of capital, and I'm going to bring in some of these as I answer this very briefly. One of the things that I got from working with UBC, UTV, the 20 years, one was the social capital. I got known to the extent that there's some CEOs today I do work for, they may not remember my name, they'll just say the smart guy. The smart guy of TV. Oh, that's the smart guy. That's what they have in their mind. I was building a brand. I was building, the previous speakers were talking, guests were talking about value. I was building value because the value proposition that we set to the world is what's going to greatly gauge how far we go in life. Value. African economies and companies, individuals, households must learn to build value. Parents must teach their kids how to build value. So I was building value, number one. Number two, my travel history today, I'll tell you, I've been to the UK, US, for the last 15, 17, 18 years. But that only came through while I was working on UTV. I met the first couple that invited me to the US, the first couple that invited me to the UK. The rest now is history. So you have a travel history of about 20 years. To some people, that's not important. In our global village today, travel history is very, very important.
Yes.
But then also the exposure to get to meet as many people. Imagine the kind of people that you interview here. And what I could say is it's very important for anyone to understand where they're positioned and working. What are the opportunities beyond the paycheck? When I would meet these CEOs and interview them, I'm getting in their minds and I'm learning. I'm short-circuiting my learning process of, I would be doing a master's to learn what these CEOs are telling me. And I would befriend them to just pick that knowledge. Back to your question, the importance of long-term thinking is that we need to understand that the greatest of economies, the greatest of nations, the greatest of brands. If you go look at the world of business, whether from Microsoft to the Louis Vuitton family, these are brands that have been built over the years. Japan is famous for having the longest lifespan of brands, companies. If you look at the top 100-year brands, most of them are from Asia. And they've learned the longevity of how important it is to build for the future, because what we need to understand is that whatever we get to build, we must be building for the future. The future means so many years to come. That's why it means that if I start to build with the perspective of the long term, it means that there are certain, when I'm laying the foundation, I'll tell you something. I'm in the construction industry. And one of the key things we notice is that I can tell what you're going to build by looking at the foundation. Now, to the person that is listening or watching, it's very important you look at your life. What are you building? You can tell what you're building by looking at your foundation. If you're going to set up for a bungalow, I can tell by how thick the columns are, but also how shallow or how deep the foundation is. If somebody's going to set up a skyscraper, you're literally going to come to the foundations and say, wow, what is this that you are going to... I'll say, what is this? Not because I don't know, but because of I'm amazed at how high this building is going to be. Now, long-term thinking will mean that I might build River Group right now, but I'm not necessarily, yes, there's profit here and there. I can buy a nice suit and I can buy more land and expand and all that. But in my mind, I'm thinking my children and children's children, this is a brand that will live long enough, not just to take care of my family, but this value must be passed on to the nation. And I always tell my teams to think, guys, Uganda is a $48 billion economy. East Africa is a $243 billion economy. How do we contribute to that economy? The other day I was challenging my team and saying, guys, in the next 5 to 10 years, we should be an organization worth $5 billion. And then, after saying those words, I reflected and said, wait a minute. If Uganda is a $48 billion economy,
How am I five?
then I widened the scope and started to look at the heat map of our business extensions. I said, okay, so we need to think East Africa. 243 billion. But even with the 243 billion, I felt like, okay, that's going to be humanly very challenging. Let's start thinking Africa. Africa is a 2.9 trillion dollar economy. But beyond that, I keep telling people, as we build long term, we must be thinking about the diversification of how far we can go. Listen, we are, and that's why I keep telling entrepreneurs or business owners, I don't like it when somebody comes to me and says, oh, I've always looked for you to help me. I have this small business of mine. That's what I call the curse of SMEs. It's okay to run a small medium enterprise, but I don't like it when you label your brand all the time. Make a small salon, make a small boutique, make a small hustle. Remember, the size of your results is going to be greatly dependent on the size of your thoughts. Simply tell me, Edwin, help me understand how better to improve my business. I run a salon, I run a boutique, I run an agro-processing company. Don't label it small. And that has been the greatest problem of Africa. At the EU, at the World Economic Forum, everywhere on the global stage. Do you know what we are called? Third world, developing nations. Do you know what the colonial masters called us? The dark continent. Do you know what that means for us? It cuts off our vision even for the long term. Why? Because today I'll tell you something. We all queue up at the mercy of the Western world and the Europeans asking for the visas. We at their mercy. The other day we were looking at the stats of how much these embassies make from us in terms of visa rejections. And guess what? On the other hand, when the European and the Western world is coming to Africa, we tell them, no problem. You can just get the visa at entry. Don't worry, just come. Everybody come. What's the problem in there? There's that dichotomy or that difference that we need to sort out, because for a long time there's been that inferiority complex that has been set for us as Africans, seeming like we are less of ourselves. And one of the things, again, allow me to refer to your president, I've loved the times he has stood up to the European and the Western world and say to them, listen, we know how to run our countries. You cannot dictate to us how we run our countries. The day the Queen passed on, I happened to be in London that day. The day I'm not the one that killed her, but the day I was landing is the very day she passed on. And guess what? So all these African heads of state are placed in these buses. And I know that President Paul, I think, refused to go. President Museveni refused to go. But guess what? And then the president of America comes in. He had a motorcade of about 8 cars. On top of that, he had what do they call his? It's a not the Air Force. There's another jet of his, just in case he doesn't prefer to go on the ground. He will go in the air. But then I'm thinking about it. I'm like, oh, okay, I know where this is coming from. So you're talking about America, which is a $17 trillion economy, versus a UK, which is $3 trillion. So they're receiving that big shot. On the other hand, in the buses, you have altogether combined 54 nations of Africa at 2.8 trillion versus a UK which is 3 trillion, and it weighs and says, okay, these African leaders are also coming. They deserve to be in the bus.
Give them the buses.
Exactly. And I always tell people, in life, listen to this, in life, you do not get what you deserve. That's how life is unfair. You get what you negotiate for. So in the long-term thinking, both at individual level, at household level, I tell the young people, learn to be patient. Success, and to the Christians I always say, success is not a miracle. Success is a process. The process, there will be those short-term gains, but the bigger gains are usually in the long term. That's why in the building process, there must be that patience. So there's what we call patience capital. There's what we call, so in all this, very importantly, there must be that emotional intelligence to understand. There's a singer in Uganda who passed on radio Mose.
Radio.
Yes,
Yeah,
Mose Radio,
he sang
yes.
that song Ebirungi biri mu maaso, so the good things are ahead. And I'll tell you something, if you care to build with an imagination and a positive mind that knows that actually in your building process, while you're patient, that actually better things are ahead, then that's when you begin to understand the essence of long-term thinking and visionary leadership. Understanding that good things usually don't come that easy and quick. They are waited upon, built, and I'll close by simply saying, if you're manufacturing a bicycle, you could assemble it in 1 or 2 days. But if you're shaping up a Rolls Royce, it could take months on end. But when you get the Rolls Royce and set it on the road, and you also set a bicycle on the other hand, the difference is very clear. And that's what America has done from the 1776s, the men that built America, the Andrew Carnegies, the Henry Fords. That's what they had in their mind. Keep in mind, America, did you know, was also a British colony that gained its independence from Great Britain? So to Africans that are listening, our excuse can no longer be, oh, you see, we were colonized. We were colonized, and you see, because of that, it affected us, and it ruined. No. Visionaries learn to rise beyond all imposed limitations, which most limitations are actually self-imposed. And I think for me, it's very important for our long-term thinking to, first of all, start from the point of saying, there is no limits except those that we've imposed on ourselves. And then very importantly, understanding that this future we talk about is built one day at a time, one brick at a time. There's no construction project you ever get, apart from the prefabricated houses now that are starting to come up. But always, most of the history of architecture and engineering will tell you that these bricks on the buildings, the brick and mortar, it's one brick at a time. Whether it's many laborers, even the better. But that does not necessarily mean that this building is just going to skyrocket in a minute. There's a process. So to everybody listening, long-term thinking is so important for us to understand that there's going to be some patience that's required, whether it's in building a relationship, a marriage, a business, building a city. There will be that patience that's required. And that's very important to know, that the winning formula always will be long-term thinkers and long-term visionaries.
I want us to end the conversation with this question. Dr. Edwin, you wear so many hats. You've spoken about all these companies, organizations, and boards that you sit on. You are a pastor, media executive, entrepreneur. How do you balance spiritual insight with practical decision making in business and in leadership? You have just about a minute and a half.
Oh, okay. Finding your rhythm in life. I found my rhythm in life, and everybody, it's important for all of us to find our rhythm in life. And the 7 types of capital I always talk about that greatly help me on that. Spiritual capital, God first all the time. Then physical capital is very important. Take care of your body, because it will take care of you in future. You'll need your body. Social capital, it's very important who you know, but not your networks determine your net worth. You must build value to add to those networks. Then you talk about emotional capital, because you're going to need a lot of emotional stamina to be able to walk through and wiggle through this life. And then we talk about the time capital, very important. The currency of life is time. Then finally, we talk about the financial capital, how you manage your money. Financial literacy is very important. And also very importantly, intellectual capital. The world is divided. The biggest divide in the world is simply defined by what you know that she doesn't know. The difference between you and her right now is what you know that she doesn't know, what she knows that you don't know. The biggest divide that Africa has with the rest of the world is what we know that they don't know, or what they know that we don't know. The difference between the poor and the rich is simply what the rich man knows that the poor man doesn't know. The difference between a wealthy economy and a poor economy is simply what the wealthy economy knows that the poor economy doesn't know. In a nutshell, for me, one is about finding my rhythm. Then also, very importantly, understanding that the template of the successes we talk about, the nation building we talk about, everything ultimately, to the Muslims, yes, they will look at the Quran and it replicates the same things that are in the Bible. But everything, King Solomon says, there's nothing new under the sun. Whatever we imagine, you talk about the plane, right, brothers, in 1903, you look at the bird. How does the bird fly? It's the plane. So all the imaginations, you can see that there's a creator who set in motion everything we can ever desire to imitate or innovate. Let's not think actually we are creators of these things. No, we're simply imitators of whatever already exists. So in a nutshell, what I can say is that we all need to be aiming to be our better versions of ourselves. Every single day, I keep telling people, today, you must aim to be better than yesterday. Next week, you must aim to be better than last week. Next month, you must aim to be better than last month. 2025, you should be planning to be better in 2026 than you are. Never find yourself the same version in 2026 as you are in 2025. Finally, I can say your thought process will always greatly determine. The size of your thoughts will greatly determine the size of your results. God bless you.
Juliana has been quiet for the most of
I'm
the
just gonna
time. And I know why. I know why. Because you refuse to resign when you have to resign.
Well, I'll get there. I'll resign when the time is right. I will. I don't worry.
Did you have any question for Edwin today?
No, I think pretty much you've said almost everything. I've almost close to what I wanted to ask, but also I can only say that thank you for your good job and thank you for inspiring so many of us. And I can't wait to read that book that you actually...
yeah, I'll make sure you get copies.
Please. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just want to remind the audience that Dr. Edwin Musiime has a new book called Next Level Thinking.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
You need to go find that book wherever you buy your books because he'll be delivering some to Rwanda. So you should be finding them where you normally buy your books. There's another book you have here.
Yeah, Joseph Economic Transformation is another phenomenal book. So there's about 6 books right now that I would tell people to get them. The Power to Become, Wealth Creation Systems, Influence, then Joseph Economic Transformation. And people can just get onto my social media platforms, Dr. Edwin Musiime, across all the platforms, TikTok, Instagram, etc. But also my official website, edwinmusiime.org or the rivergroupafrica.com for more details. And we are going to be availing both digital copies and physical copies. But also, very importantly, there's an Egyptian I met who told me, no, why don't you do podcasts for that? So next week, I'm actually now embarking on also creating audio versions of all these books. So so there will be a variety for people to be able to enjoy and grow.
Thank you so much, Dr. Edwin, for making the time to be here on Kigali in the Morning. We're truly honored and blessed. 2 minutes to 10 o'clock, Kigali in the Morning comes to an end. So many things we weren't able to do, but of course, we thought this is better for breakfast than anything else we could offer you. So God bless you. And coming up next, we have a beautiful session on Z Frequency. Should be Joy Love coming in, sitting for...
Yes, for Zuba.
For Zuba Motors. Bye-bye.